Before we continue with the video, if you like what I'm doing here on this channel, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Welcome back to my Create an RPG series. In this episode we will be enhancing the AI further, and we will, to start off with, at least fix its goldfish memory. So remember from the last episode where we could go out and we could get seen by the AI, and then it would follow us, and if we just lost his line of sight for a little bit, he would go back to roaming again like normal, like nothing happened. Normally you want an AI to at least remember you for a little bit longer, so that you might want to have the functionality still that if you break line of sight, the enemy goes back to roaming again, but you may want to have it at least remember for a little bit. So let's implement something like that. If we open up our AI character, I'll just close down all the other tabs. We have the situation where we are checking against if we are successfully seen, or if the player is successfully seen in this case. In the case where we are not seeing the character, if we imagine that we first see him and then we lose track of him, we want to retain that information for a little bit. So we can disconnect this for now and just move it out of the way. We will be using it a little bit later. What we can do here is we can do a set timer by event. And here we can say, for example, that we should remember a player for 5 seconds. We can also promote this to variables, so we have something a little bit more flexible to change if we want to later on. We can call this memory duration, maybe something like that. Now it will be defaulted to 5 seconds because we set it to that before we promoted the variable. In addition to that, we also want to hook up the event here, so we'll just do that. We'll add an event, and we can call this stop following player. So this is what will trigger when we decide that we should no longer remember the player, and we will go back to our roaming, because that's when the time has expired here. For later purposes, we want to promote this to a variable as well. Generally a good thing to store the variables of timers in case you want to manipulate them in some way later on. We can call this one remember player timer reference. Super descriptive, super awesome. So when we decide that we're no longer supposed to follow the player anymore, we can just hook up the code that we created earlier, which sets the player character blackboard reference to null. And we also want to have it so that, because currently what we have is, if we, let's see if we can manipulate this in such a way so I can demonstrate this. But if we go and we're seen, no. Okay, so I'll try to explain it. If we end up in a situation where we are first seeing the player, then we lose track of the player and end up here, we will start a timer, then we start seeing the player again. We have a situation where this event could happen while we are being seen, which is not ideal, because we will have a frame then where the player reference will be set to 0. The logic in the behavior trees, if you remember, it will abort what it's doing here. It will go itself back to roaming, and in the roaming it will then pretty immediately go and say, well, find a new location here. But it might like almost immediately then determine that it sees the player again and switch back to attacking again. So in this specific case, not the biggest of deals. because it would recover so quickly, and that our logic currently isn't that advanced. But it's good to be aware of in case you're having something that is a little bit more advanced, that you're cleaning up a little bit. So what we can say here, for example, if we are currently seeing the player, then we're not interested in this event currently being run anymore. So we can just say that, let's see here, remember player timer reference, we can say that this one should be cleared and not running anymore while we currently see the player. Because again, it's not relevant, right? So that's just like for cleanliness' sake, even though this isn't very clean, but yeah, this should probably be cleaned up in like functions and stuff like that. But it's easier to display the whole thing like this currently. So I'll see if we will get back to cleaning it further later on. But we will not be making a super advanced AI. We will just be scraping on the surface to see what we can do with an AI opponent that makes use of our ability systems, essentially. Right, so now we have a character which should be able to remember us for a few seconds. So let's see if it actually does that, and if it continues to run after us. So we'll say, hey you, and he's like, yeah, I'm interested, and then we'll jump over here. And he should still be trying to find us and follow us, and there you see he runs around the corner. So now we would need to have line of sight broken from him for 5 seconds, which is probably easier said than done. But yeah, if we were to manage that for 5 seconds, he would break his logic and go back to roaming, essentially. So what kind of duration you want to have here is completely up to you. For your preferences and what you want to make use of it, of course. Right. So let's add the functionality of our abilities now then. Well, we have the parts here where we're actually moving to a character and then rotating to them. Let's add an ability to actually perform an ability. So to do that, we will create a new task, so we have that encapsulated there. We'll go and rename this task to BTT. Let's call it use ability. And in here we will create the receive execute AI. And we know that we have our abilities from our base character, that even this character is derived from in our third person character, in our ability blueprint component. So going to our control pawn here, we can say get component by class, and we can say we want to have a BPC ability component. If this is valid, then we want to do something. If it is not valid, we can say sorry, not that. We go finish, execute, and say success failed. In the case that we do have an ability here, we can say that we want to get available abilities, and we can say something like these will be all the abilities that we have. So this is not very precise right now, but if you were to expand this and make it more advanced, you would maybe have certain abilities with certain tags, so you get like all the attack abilities, or you can make determinations like if someone is far away, you want to use ranged abilities. If someone is close, you'll make close abilities and have some kind of more advanced logic to it. But for now, we're just keeping it very simple to demonstrate how it can be used at all. So typing in a random array element, we will get a value that says a random item in the array, essentially. And with our random item in the array, we can say like this. We both get the object reference and the integer here for the array index. So here we can say use ability. And the index will be the index that we got from this random here. And then we can say that we're done. we can say a success on that. Now, our character over here is, in this case, in my case, a BP AI character. So it currently is separate from our classes, the warrior and the maid that we have made, which means we can give it completely different abilities if we wanted to. So starting abilities for this one is currently none, but we could add a few. We could add maybe the slash and the multi-slash, because those sort of make sense also with the locomotion that we've given him so far, and we don't really have any mage abilities yet. So let's see what happens now if we approach this character. So he will see us, he will run up to us, he will rotate to us, and he will do nothing currently. And the reason for this we can probably demonstrate. So we go to our, let's do this first. Let's choose the character, the AI, press apostrophe, and you can see that he's spamming between different abilities right now here, or different things in the behavior tree. So let's see what he's actually doing. We'll take the attacking and we'll look at it. So here we can see he's going, what did I not? I did not even add the functionality. Okay, let's add the functionality. How about that? Not the basic one, we want to have the attacking one, and we want to say, why is it still running? That's odd. Anyway, let's call the usability over here after we have rotated to our target. Okay, save, we run again, and let's see. So he sees us, he walks up to us, he does an attack. And you can now immediately see that we have a lot of things going on here. You can see that the tracing from the sword immediately is available because that is related to the weapon and the components that we have given him in the combat component. You can see that we are getting stacks added to the character as it's doing its different attacks. And you can see that it is also dealing out damage to our character in here. I do believe we have set up damage on the ability, right? So if we were to go and check our character currently for our attributes, you can see that we're currently at minus 270 hit points, and we're having a Christmas tree of pain here essentially being created. So you can see that by the way we have set things up, we get a lot of things for free for the character now, because it was very easy to have at least the rudimentary function of using everything that we have set up currently. There might still be needing some tweaking and things like that, but I'm sure we'll handle that as we move along. For now, I think this might be a good place to stop. I hope to see you in the next episode. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments you have down below. Subscribe and share this video if you want to see more like it in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.